Call to order the Cottage Grove Public Services Commission for January the 8th. Thank you, Lisa. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Taken. Thank you. Approval of the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you. Second. Any questions or comments? So moved. Oh, I'm sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion moves. Thank you. Approval of the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion moves. Oh, I should probably gavel in. And let's go right into presentations then. Ryan, you up?
Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. So tonight, I'm here to talk about a handful of requests that we've gotten for two different locations on Ravine Parkway for some enhancements to crosswalks. And this is the section of Ravine Parkway from Jamaica Avenue to Keats Avenue. So that was the part that was built in 2018 and opened up in 2019. And what the specific request is for is rectangular rapid flashing beacons, or RRFBs we call them. We have these at a few locations around town. I have a picture of the installation by Woodridge Park on 90th Street. We also have one on Hinton Avenue, just south of 70th, and then on Jamaica and 80th as well. So this is, like I said, an enhanced version of a crosswalk just to draw more attention and help kind of make those drivers obey those laws of stopping when that pedestrian is in the crosswalk. They are fairly expensive. They can range between, for us in our time, 10 to 20,000 we've seen. And that kind of depends on, what is those existing concrete pedestrian ramps like. There's specific ADA requirements once you put in an RFB you have to meet. So sometimes we find those pedestrian ramps don't meet that. So we have to do all the concrete work in addition to buying and installing the device. They have gotten a lot easier over the years because now they're solar and Bluetooth. So they have to be connected and they need power. So we used to have to run power to them and then have a wire under the road to connect them. So that's been a good improvement over the years with new technology, but they still come with quite a cost. So with that, when we find locations that, we get the request and there's an initial kind of staff review, just to make sure, what does this look like? Does MnDOT really recommend something like this be considered or not? And if it is, we do want to bring it to the commission to get more feedback, because typically the next step would be to talk to city council at budget time about trying to, budget something like this would be the next step if the commission has some recommendation to move forward with one or both. Typically we look to do about one per year. Obviously if something is, very important, very needed, we can always talk to the council about more, but that's kind of what we'd look to do. And when we look at how we'd install these, it's all about the roadway characteristics. In Ravine Parkway, actually right now the traffic isn't extremely high. It's about 1,000 vehicles per day. For like a neighborhood collector, that is a little bit on the lower end, but we know it's going to grow over time, right? The area's developing, and that's definitely not the highest it'll get. Other roads in town like Hillside Trail, Indian Boulevard, those range from like 2,000 to 4,000 for like a collector roadway. So that's kind of gets to be the more of the higher traffic amounts, but it is a higher speed limit. So a lot of our collectors, when there's like homes on them, which Ravine Parkway doesn't have, are 30. This is 40-mile-an-hour posted speed limit. It is a 2-lane design, so just 1 lane in each direction with that median, and then there is turn lanes at every intersection. And the two locations that have been requested, one is the first one by the new Glacial Valley Park, and you can see I've actually got an updated aerial here that shows that park actually under construction this summer. Some of the driving factors for those requests have been kind of twofold. One, you can see those townhomes to the south being built. There's even more homes south of that, so probably several hundred units of housing that may want to walk there, especially because they are townhomes and they don't really have a large space to use right around their home, that maybe they're more inclined to go to the park to play. Also, the parking lot at Glacial Valley, even though it's as big as we could fit with all the needed amenities, there's some concern that if you have overlap of, let's say, a bigger rental at the new building, plus maybe a tournament, there may need to be some parking on Joliet Avenue where actual users of the park would cross Ravine Parkway potentially on those busy times. The other location is at number 2, and there's really 2 spots because of that divided section there, and that's where the military trail, we call it, crosses Ravine Parkway, and that's that trail corridor that'll run from Keats Avenue up to kind of where Military Road and Jamaica Avenue come together for that kind of historic military trail corridor that we're developing as Military Road is removed. So those are the 2 locations in question. And as staff, one of our tools we use is from the MnDOT Traffic Engineering Manual, and it's for pedestrian facility treatments. There's a lot of numbers and different things on here, so just as a kind of showing of what we look at. You don't need to look at all of it right now because there's a lot going on, but it looks at what's the speed limit, what's the vehicle ADT, how many lanes are crossing, and that's where it talks about, considering doing something like an RFP. It doesn't mean you shall put it in, but MnDOT says you can consider it. So this is what we look at. So for that first location at Glacial Valley Park, I took an image out. I actually took it out of Street View because that works pretty handy. So obviously it's not that sunny and green as it is right now, but this is what it looks like. This is from this summer. And you can see it's got that median, but being at an intersection. It does have a marked crosswalk today, and state law says at an intersection pedestrians can cross. So you don't see like the signs here because it is already a legal crossing point, and we typically don't do those signs at intersections. There is 4 lanes to cross technically because you have the 2 turn lanes. It kind of acts like a 3-lane section in terms of having 2 left turn lanes and a through lane in each direction, but there is 4 lanes of traffic to cross here. And based on that MnDOT guidance and the traffic counts, so this is under that first kind of box of lettering, that vehicle AT under 90,000, 40-mile-an-hour speed limit. So it does say that RFB could be considered. That would be something that would work here and could be justified. You actually see on those greater than 45 or greater than equal to 45, they're actually not recommended to be installed on roads like that. We have some older ones. Yep, there's safety issues. Yep, there's some older ones we have that are still there, so they're kind of grandfathered in. But if it's 45 or greater, MnDOT says to not install that type of device. So this is one to consider. This was kind of the details of it. One unique thing is the park isn't really fully open yet. It will be this year. So we don't know what that use is going to be. We don't know, will there need to be parking on the south side? There's a lot of thought that there will be, but that hasn't happened yet. So this is maybe more of a trying to be proactive instead of reactive if something like this were installed. So the other location is at that trail crossing. I show one image. The other side is very similar to this. This is what we'd call a mid-block crossing, so it's not at an intersection. So it does have the markings and one sign, showing that the crosswalk is there. And because it is only the 1 lane in each direction, MnDOT guidance wouldn't necessarily recommend. It's not that you couldn't put one. It's actually because there's only 1 lane, it kind of considers an RFB maybe to be a little too much, right? It's more than what you need at this type of location. So, but we have gotten several requests and questions about it. That's why I still want to bring it to the commission to consider. Some of the recommendations are that like pedestal style sign. Those are quite often put on like a center line though of a road potentially because there's only the 1 lane of traffic. You can really see those signs, you can see the markings. So even though that's something MnDOT says you could do here, a lot of times that would be 2 lanes that are right by each other, and you'd put that right on like the yellow stripe in the middle. Another thing that could be done is maybe adding another pedestrian crossing sign just on the other side so they see 2 pointing down instead of just the 1. Mm-hmm. So that would be another option that we could do as well here. But based on the MnDOT guidance, that RFB would maybe a little above and beyond at this location. So those are the 2 locations in question. And that's kind of the information I have, but I'd be happy to get any feedback or discussion from the commission.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When is the planned connection for Ravine Parkway to connect between Jamaica over to like Hinton?
Hinton, yep, that's a good question. We do get that one a lot, Commissioner Jensen. So that is really dependent on development. So there's 2 undeveloped parcels there, one owned by Waltersdorf, another by name's blanking on me now, but really it's development driven. So you'd see that right away obtained and that road built when they develop. So I know for obviously the Waltersdorf parcel, there's always been a lot of interest in that parcel over the last 10 years. It has a lot of bedrock on it and a lot of other challenges that have made it difficult to develop, but that's when you'd see that happen.
Okay. I assume the traffic volume would definitely increase. at
Yep,
that point. Yeah.
that definitely could be when you get more connectivity for sure.
Go ahead, Ron.
So not a question, just my own feedback. I can certainly see having the one by the park for sure.
Yep.
But the other one, first of all, you have the MnDOT recommendation that it really isn't needed. And my fear is if you were to put one there, there's a lot more crossings as you continue west
Yep.
on Ravine that are kind of similar to that. Then we're gonna get more and more requests, and you're gonna have them all along Ravine the whole way then. So I would not recommend one at that second crossing, but certainly would support the one at the park, because I could certainly see the need there.
Yep. And one thing I should have mentioned, actually, if this trail crossing was picked, you would actually need two because of that installation is at each spot. So you'd actually have to install two of them just to serve this one section of road as well.
I would say definitely add a second, the second pedestrian sign on the other side would be very helpful.
Okay.
It would definitely draw attention, more attention to that. But I mean, you also don't have any passing, it's one lane, you're not worrying about any passing traffic.
Yep.
I think there's a lot less, if you will, risk there than the other location. I agree that that would definitely be an area, and I think we're gonna see a lot of traffic at that park. So,
agree.
for sure.
Okay.
I like the idea of being proactive as well. We know that there's going to be more housing and more people, and it's going to take time to implement and be budgeted for. So
Yep.
I think it's a good idea.
And obviously I'm biased, but because I live right by it. One of the things with the second intersection is if you're coming left to right on that trail, oftentimes traffic, either direction, doesn't look for you. So if you're running, they don't stop. How much is a stationary sign like the one that's there?
So stationary sign, those we actually do ourselves. So the sign itself is, I'm trying to think if we make those or buy them. I don't know if Gary knows. Those we make, yep. Some we make, some we buy. So that's not a huge cost. It's probably only $100 in material. And then we install that with our own staff.
Cool. Yeah, I would certainly say, like I said, even though I'm biased, I would still say that putting a stationary sign in there is at a minimum what should be done. But yeah, the park, that's going to be, because the parking lot, like you said, is smaller than it wanted to be. I think you're going to have a lot of people parking on the other side of the road.
Yep.
So yeah, I would say that one is probably the primary marking that you should do.
Okay.
I really like the state law signs. They prove to be effective because the pedestrian law, quite frankly, is very hard to interpret. And as a pedestrian and as a driver, it just means different things, and it's at the liberty of who is reading it.
Yep.
So when you see a sign like that, I think it reinforces that, okay, I need to yield if I see a ped.
Yep. That is hard. I do get a lot of calls from the public, I will say, that they say I stood, back on the trail for 3 minutes and no one stopped, but technically state law is you have to be in the crosswalk. Now,
crosswalk.
that's hard because cars need to be stopping if you're getting that crosswalk, but how many people do you see sitting on their phones these days where maybe they're just waiting there for a minute to send an email or something, and obviously don't want cars stopping in a road for no reason, so it's tough.
Well, you also have people that choose to let traffic go.
Yep.
I see that a lot driving bus,
Yep.
they'd rather stop and have you go before
Yep.
they go, even though they do have the right of way, which also can create confusion, and misinterpretation, so.
Yep. That's a good point. Yeah, one of probably the most risky situations is actually when you have two lanes in each direction, because if you have one car stop and one car not, they can't see the pedestrian. That's where these single lane in each direction, but even with the turn lanes, is a much safer situation.
Yeah, like I said, I would say that the park is the first priority. This one, I think, you're probably gonna have an issue down the road once that connection's built.
Yep.
Once traffic increases, but that was just something I wanted to bring up too. Like, down the road, maybe you'd need to have the flashing ones, but presently, I'm not sure that it's required.
And one thing we can definitely do is keep this area in mind, right? Not just kind of cast it off to the side, but just let's monitor it. We do the traffic counts every other year at a minimum, just for our state aid funds that we get, and just kind of monitor everything as well.
Well, it's interesting, Nate, because I know, I live on this side over here on Jensen. I know it's a county road, but, talk about an issue where we have 55 miles an hour and we got a crossing for Park, getting from Woodridge up to Ravine, and there's people coming along there all the time. So it's interesting. We have a lot of opportunities throughout our community to find safer ways, especially as these parks develop and developments start coming in, as that new development starts coming in just off of 19 and 90th.
Yep.
Any other questions for Ryan?
I think based on that, we can kind of refine these costs, and what we'll do then is when we have, good numbers, we go to the city council. We actually just approved our last budget. You'd be surprised, we'll start our next budget before you know it at a staff level, so we can do that work and kind of move it forward. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
No.
And next up is commission terms.
I can talk about.
Thank you.
I'll talk about that one. Move around a little bit here. So really, this is more of just an FYI. Get me off mute. This is more of an FYI. Carrie did reach out, I think, and let commissioners know where they were at in their terms. So this just shows, the commissioners that are in their first or second terms, and obviously you can serve, up to the 4 terms. So at this point, no one's, terming out, and everyone will be moving ahead. That actually goes to city council, I think at our next meeting or the first meeting in February, just to kind of reaffirm reappointment of commissioners. So everyone on this commission will be reappointed, for another year. Any questions at all? Sounds good.
Great. It's a fast meeting. Officer appointments?
That'll be me too. We have some new liaisons that they can, take the weight off my shoulders as they get
Yeah.
into the commission. But, so for officer appointments, obviously last year we had a chair and vice chair that had termed out. So we did have to go through the voting and determining a new chair and vice chair. I spoke with Councilmember Thiede, and kind of what we typically do. So if those officers are still remaining on the commission, which Kath and Cons are both staying on, as long as you're still interested in doing that, typically you can serve another term in that role, as long as you guys are open to that, unless you have any concerns. So
We're good.
so that's what we'll do for 2024, and discuss it again in a year. So
That sounds
easy.
good. And commission comments? Any comments, concerns from the commission?
Yeah, actually, I was gonna ask, how did that, did anybody attend that snowmobile event on Saturday?
Yeah, I was there.
It was, go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, it was well attended again. Actually, for a snowmobiler, this is not very good weather. But for the people that went to it, it was actually a nice day out there and got to enjoy. And so I had a really nice time.
It was kind of weird to see everyone in sweatshirts, but like Ron said, it was well attended, and they donated an AED to Lamar, and I mean, just good things really came out of it.
Yeah, they did a nice job. I do have one thank you to, I don't know if it was public service that did it or it was the parks, but I know where I live by Woodridge there, they came into that woods that goes along 90th and really did a nice job of cleaning that up. It looks like they might still have a little bit more to go, but it's like night and day now when you drive by that. Well done.
There was parks in there.
Okay.
Nice. Any other comments from the commission? All right. Staff updates. Would you like to start?
Yep,
Ryan?
I can go first. So, touching on some engineering and public works projects, probably the biggest one is always thinking about PFAS and our PFAS contamination of our wells. I think I've talked over the last year at random updates about there's kind of 2 new things coming out. There's federal standards that'll be coming out that were supposed to come out in December of 2023. They've been delayed until probably February, March of 2024. And those are what we call MCLs. That's like a hard number, maximum contaminant limit that we can't be over. It's going to be set very low. So it's going to be very, very restrictive for 2 different types of PFAS that have been looked at for many, many years. And that'll be the first time that there'll be a new rule like that at a federal level in a long, long time. So it's a big deal. What cities have is 3 years to be in compliance with that level, which we're obviously actively doing with our permanent treatment plants. We obviously broke ground on the one in September, that's south of 100th Street. And actually, they just started pouring footings this past week. So that was actually very exciting to see. The weather's been pretty cooperative, so they could actually get all their grading done, and now they'll pour footings actually all winter long. They'll actually have to pour concrete almost all the way through next fall. There's so much concrete in that facility. So, and that'll be operational in 2025. And then we have a second larger one that'll be kind of by the central fire station, actually behind the central fire station. That'll serve all the homes north of the highway essentially. And that one will be operational as our goal by, end of 2026 or early 2027. We do have the temporary treatment plants, of course, that still serve the entire community. So I always like to make sure people know that even though that first permanent one's being built first, all those temporary treatment plants are in place, and we're actually providing 100% treated water to our residents even today, which I think is a really big deal. The state's also going to come out with some new values, and that'll really be, we assume, any day now. They don't ever really give any notice of that, but there's been a lot of talk about it. So we're building actually 2 more temporary treatment plants this spring, which is kind of hard to hear because we're building permanent ones too. But with the new values, we have to have more temporary treatment to do that. What's nice, once again, they're very small, very cost effective, and the big treatment vessels that actually do the work actually will move into that permanent treatment plant behind the fire station. So that's not any kind of wasted money. 100% paid for by that 3M settlement, so our residents pay not a dime for that, but we're very cost effective in how we reuse actually the treatment tanks for that. So that's another big deal. We're actually got some quotes a few weeks ago, and they came in good, and we'll be looking to move ahead here soon and have those operational before summer.
Ryan, do the state usually typically mirror the feds, or are they a little stricter than the feds, or how does that work?
So the anticipation is, based on some different comments at public meetings, they'll be stricter than the feds.
Okay.
Now, the state rules, it's interesting, they're not technically a mandate. They're technically a guidance, but every city follows them. I mean, we follow them. That's really what caused the watering restriction in 2017. So those we anticipate to come out soon, and we do want to follow those. That's always been our goal, and it's been the council's strong goal and kind of standard that we meet those state rules, which we have continued to do.
So then you're ready for the feds.
We are, yep.
Okay,
So we'll be pretty
nice.
well set. So that's our big one. So you'll probably see that, I mean, to be honest, on the news and such, that it's going to affect a lot of communities. It's going to affect a lot more communities than just Cottage Grove because it's so restrictive. But we'll be providing 100% treated water, which is a really big deal with all the work that's been put into that. So that's my biggest one, because really from a construction standpoint, we met in November, and really a lot of the construction had wrapped up by then. We had a couple developments finish up some work, one right across the street here by 19, and there's another one called Graymont Village down south of 100th Street, kind of by that new 105th Street we built by Ideal Avenue, and that one wrapped up work as well. So not a lot of work happening, and I will let Gary talk as well about streets, although it's been a little different than last year because not as much plowing as we had last year.
So good evening, and
Gary.
not good for the snowmobilers, like you said, but it's been a good break for our plow drivers. We have been out about 5 times, but just salting, we still even haven't dropped a blade yet this year. So with that, what that brings us to remove trees, we have 85 dead or diseased boulevard trees we're in the process of removing. We're also, like parks, that's the reason they had a hard time with their rinks, so they've been out in their parks cleaning a lot of trees down in deadfall. We're in our ponds. A big one we just completed would be over by Hardwood in 70th Street. If you look down by the townhomes, you can see in there pretty clear it was a disaster look in there, but now it looks really nice and clean. We did have one of our street guys transfer over to utilities. So we interviewed 14 people. We have it narrowed down to 2. They're in the second round interviews. We had one today, one tomorrow. So hopefully we can make a decision by the end of the week and get one on within the next month or so. The other thing with development, we're making a lot of new street name blades. So we've been making them, installing them, and replacing some damaged signs. Other than that, it's pretty much, like I said, we're a whole big group of foresters right now removing a bunch of trees in town.
Nice.
Any questions for me? Hopefully we'll get some snow
Enjoy it
soon.
while you can.
Yes. Thank you.
Actually, I will go one more time before I turn it over to Captain Peterson, just because we have our new fire liaison, new chief, John Pritchard, who was at the last meeting. Because we moved the meeting tonight, he had a standing thing that was a conflict, but he will obviously be here at the next moving going forward. But he did send me some updates, just that he asked me to pass along. So he did say it, now that we're into 2024, fire is preparing their year-end statistics. They had just over 4,600 calls last year, which is a 43% increase in the last 5 years since 2018. They had 445 calls for service in December of '23, which was their busiest month ever as a department. And they are working on their year-end statistics overall, which John is planning to present at the next meeting to the commission, so that'll be good. And then they are also recruiting 5 firefighter paramedic positions, and they have 3 vacancies to fill for additional positions being added in April of 2024. So that's the update from fire.
Thank you. Captain Peterson.
All right, good evening, Commissioners. As you can see, I am not Captain Renzel, so I'm your newly promoted patrol captain. And so I'll start tonight's brief with updates on personnel, because we've had a lot of change in the last few months. So Captain McAllister announced his retirement a few months back, and so we started the process of replacing him. And then with my promotion, that opened up a new sergeant's position. And so we started that process to promote the new sergeant. And in the middle of that process, we decided to implement some organizational changes. We wanted to add 2 additional sergeants and move some other chess pieces around, and really take a look at the entire organization and see how we could best provide the services given the current staffing we have of 46 authorized officers. So we shook things up and promoted those 3 additional sergeants. So we had that swearing in this past week. Sergeants Schoen, Bailey, and Young were promoted. And then from there was even further trickle-down effect because they vacated specialty positions with which they needed to be backfilled. And so we filled our community engagement officer, our case management officer, some rotating detective positions. And there's probably others that I'm forgetting, but there was a big trickle-down effect. And so there's a lot of officers in new positions. And so we've spent the last couple weeks and the first week of this year just getting everybody acclimated into their new positions, learning their new responsibilities and roles. And so that's going to take a little bit of time, but we're still delivering excellent service. One of the big changes that I wanted to comment on was how we restructured our investigations division. In the past, we had a captain who oversaw the division. Underneath him, there was a sergeant, and then underneath that sergeant, there was 10 detectives. As you know, that's too many people to supervise effectively. And so we've now broken that up into 2 branches in that investigations bureau. We've got the general investigations, which handles your traditional investigative work. They do case follow-up, charging, some of our task force operations, excuse me. So the traditional investigative work that you think about. The other branch we've branded our community impact team. And so that is more of our community-oriented problem-solving unit. So that involves our school resource officer, community engagement officer, case management officer, additional sergeant, and some others. And they've each got their own lane, but in reality, they're going to operate as a team to accomplish multiple missions, to get out in the community, form relationships, address quality of life issues, solve problems, be proactive, and try to prevent a lot of problems before they even happen. So we're really excited to see that come to fruition and start to address some problems before they even become problems for that matter. So looking forward to that. The other thing I'm really excited to let you guys in on is that we've started work on a new 5-year strategic plan. So we've got a really good start on it. I would say we've got a solid 90% solution on that. I'm excited about that because we're finally going to have a document that we can use to bring everybody together with a shared mission and clearly define our roles and our vision for the future. So by the time we meet next, I'm hoping that I can share that with you. I just don't want to put the cart before the horse and let the cat out of the bag before council and the rest of the leadership team has had the chance to see that and approve that. So looking forward to sharing that with you.
Is that something that's new?
Very new, yeah.
Nice.
We've had a strategic plan in the past, but it was kind of a document that sat on the shelf and.
Sure.
This is, we envision it to be something entirely different, so.
Good.
Am I missing anything, Ken? Yeah, so the end of that trickle-down effect is we had to hire 4 patrol officers, so we've offered 4 conditional job offers. 2 of them are laterals, so they're currently police officers with other departments. One of them, actually, the other 2 are CSOs, so all 4 come with some prior law enforcement experience, so the train-up should be pretty quick and easy with them. So they'll be starting on February 5th, and I would be confident that all 4 of them will be on solo patrol probably early summer, if not before. So,
Lot cooking.
yeah, a lot of stuff in the hopper, and I've got even more to share with you next meeting, so depending on your questions, that's all I have tonight.
I just have a general question. Where are we at community-wise with school resource officers? Do we just have one in the high school
That's correct.
and not one at the middle school, correct?
Ma'am.
Okay.
That's by the school district's choice. We used to have 3.
Right, because didn't they recently remove one from Woodbury and Eastridge?
No,
Or Woodbury chose,
Woodbury chose to come out with the new legislation that's still murky, to say the least, in regards to a school resource officer and, the liability surrounding use of force. and
Yes,
laws.
yep.
So Woodbury, on the request of their city attorney's office, removed the school resource officers due to liability. Then the attorney general let out 2 or 3 different, his recommendations in regards to his interpretations of the law, which are different. Each one's been a little different, so the law is still murky, and we're still working through that, but we, as a department and city, chose to stay in that. We would be more than happy at any point in time that the school district wanted to engage in conversations to add school resource officers back into the middle schools. It's something we would do, but that would be a staffing
Right.
increase that we would have to accommodate to get that, because we don't have enough with the current staffing to fill those roles unless they do some financial obligation.
Yeah, and I mean, I think long-term, that's something that they're gonna have to seriously look at. I mean, today alone, there was issues at one of the middle schools, and, it's not something long-term I think is gonna work, so I was just curious where we were at as a community.
They're willing, able, and ready to go whenever they want to engage in those conversations.
All right, thank you.
In the absence of an SRO in the school right now, is there any stopgap, like a security guard or?
That's the school district's prerogative. They've hired a couple different interim, and maybe Captain Peterson can talk about that, but they've hired some internal security measures. But as far as law enforcement, if they have immediate 911 service, that comes through the patrol division, and it's handled like any other call for service. There's no direct radio communication between either of the middle schools or any of the elementary schools with our officers like there is at high school, where it's direct, someone there, their radio is internal, they talk to our officer, who's then on our radio system, so there's a seamless transition of information where that doesn't occur at the other schools at this point.
Sounds like the school board needs to develop a task force for this.
We'll let that be a commission question that is raised.
I do have one more thing. So with all the change that's on the horizon, one of the things that we're considering is following suit with a lot of other communities who already have a civilian oversight committee in place for their public safety departments. So the idea we're kicking around is using the commission as our sounding board and our mechanism for soliciting community feedback on all these different ideas that we have in the hopper. And so if that's something that you are willing and able to do, we can have that discussion. Not necessarily tonight. We don't have to do it tonight. It's not what I'm saying, but maybe a future meeting, that's something that we can put on the agenda to discuss. So
I think that would be a great agenda item.
Yeah, perfect.
See, you're not gonna miss me at all.
And any other questions or concerns? All right. Council comments.
So,
Welcome.
hi, gang.
Welcome.
Glad to be back.
Yeah.
I see some familiar faces, some new that I haven't really met too much before. But let's see, a couple things. I think you've been well informed with some of the things I'm hearing. If anybody is, noticed some lights out along East Point Douglas, we did have, I don't know if you ever mentioned that, but we did have some theft of copper wire out of the street lights. So that's why they're out. So, that's being taken care of and being followed up on. But if anybody asks, that's what happened. Let's see, what else? We, just this Saturday, we got together with a lot of the staff and so forth and had our annual strategic planning meeting. And we actually had it out at the Glacial Park building, very nice building. And so forth. Everything worked well too. I guess that's a good thing. Get used a little bit. I would say that in that meeting, nothing drastically new in terms of vision or direction. Talking about different things, reinforcing, some of the things that we're already, working toward and looking at. And let's see. Anything else from that? We talked some about focus on the pavement management and looking at Jamaica and all the ruts and so forth and comparing that to some of the other areas and such. Just some of the reiterations too of, two of the areas that we get most of the comments coming back from people of, especially this year about the snow plowing has been great. But it's every year, it's people, commenting on how good the snow plowing happens in the winter and so forth, and just the service level out of public safety and things like that. So it's a real pleasure to really, get a lot of that feedback, and it all comes back to all of us. Because everybody's part of that effort and bringing that feedback back from citizens and things like that, and helping council, helping the city make things happen safely and comfortably or accommodating and nice services and things like that. So otherwise, that's all I have right now, because I think you kind of covered, I looked over the agenda items from the other meetings, there wasn't too much, but if there's any other questions that you may have of me, I can try to answer.
What's the damage on the streetlight copper theft? Because I know copper, obviously, while expensive, it's not that. It's rewiring the entire light.
Yeah, so we're still we know the extent of the damage, but we're working with our insurance and looking at what that cost is gonna be. You are right though, because even though copper has gone up significantly, prices and doubled apparently in the last few months. You probably see in St. Paul's gotten hit a lot. If the damage is, 50,000, the value they took in scrap is probably only a couple thousand, but we don't quite know yet, but we did have some messaging on Facebook just to have the public help, look out for this. Basically our staff really only work on streetlights during the day. There's never really usually a streetlight emergency. If a light's out, a light's out, and we fix it the next day. So anytime you see anyone buy a streetlight, especially overnight, to call that in, because that really shouldn't be happening. So I'd rather err on the side of caution and have the police, come up on Tyler or Jeff and utilities than give them a hard time rather than wait. So.
This is not a St. Paul Cottage Grove issue, this is a metro-wide issue. It's the newest precious metal catalytic converters kinda got stamped on a little bit, and I think they've, our friends that are in this salvage business, if you wanna call it that, are finding new ways to salvage from perfectly good and operational equipment. Biggest one, if you've ever been out to the state fair, I happen to work out at the state fair too, and the entire road in front of the state fair was stripped of all copper, and they're talking like $250,000 damage. So if you've ever been to the fair and wonder why it's so dark, they've literally stolen all the copper from St. Paul streetlights in that whole entire area, and that was a big safety concern with the fair and other things. So
Right.
I learned about it then, and it's now, like other
In your
things
backyard.
occurring, it continues to spread
Yeah.
outside of a ring, and then they find us on 61 somehow.
Any other questions for Councilmember Thiede?
One thing before I leave the commission completely is, we are gonna do we'd like to get your feedback and recruitment and retention. As you know, this last go around, we did well with having initially 30 applicants, which is good. And I kind of talked about this last meeting where that's good for today's day and age. It's horrible in law enforcement in general and still in recruitment and retention. So if you think about with neighbors or whomever, what is it that we can do to recruit and retain officers, and how far is the city willing to go? What are we looking at? Just kind of think of those other things, because I think Captain Peterson will eventually come to you and say, hey, we're kind of looking at this or this. So just kind of put that on your radar right now is, what do we do as a city of Cottage Grove to recruit, and then not only recruit, but then retain the best possible law enforcement officers that we can. Just a new hire, if somebody were to leave, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's the retention of the people that we currently have, but you take an officer that's been around for 3 to 5 years, and you're walking off with $200,000 of training, education, experience, and equipment that just walks out the door, and it's not replaced that easily. So we are gonna look for new initiatives, so kind of think about that with other people and friends and neighbors, and that's gonna be my push before I leave is, I have some ideas, but these are, internal, and this is a commission that would be great to see, what are other organizations doing? I've been steadfastly against bonuses to get people in the door, because then the 46 people that have been here diligently working on a daily basis feel as if the people that are coming in are more important than the ones that are already here, and then you end up playing now we're replacing and we're paying out this money and losing the other money on the end. So
Yep.
It's really the retention and how do we keep people, what's the culture, the wellness, whether it's pay, benefits, equipment, what is it that we have here that we can keep them? We do a good job, don't get me wrong, but the minute you relax and you decide that mediocrity or just a little bit above is good, someone's gonna come by and they're gonna steal your talent, and we need to stay at the cutting edge and at the very forefront of how do we keep our people, and how do we keep them happy, how do we keep them safe, and then how do we get the new ones in the door that are gonna replace us, because we're gonna have turnovers. I have a few years left, there's another sergeant, there's a succession plan, and this is gonna be a constant. In and of itself with growth, now you have the other people leaving for retirement, and we're gonna be filling. I think Captain Peterson wants, what's the average in the last 10 years? How many did we hire every year?
3 per year, and that's with minimal growth. So as our growth continues to increase, it'll be more per year.
So that's 3 every year.
And what's your retirement projection?
What's that?
What's the retirement projection?
We have for sure one probably in 24, and then a number in 25 higher than that.
Yep,
So,
in addition to growth. So that's a lot of that's a lot.
you're looking at a city our size. I started in Cottage Grove in 1995. I was the 33rd officer, 1995. We have 46 now, so we went from 33 to 46.
Yeah,
It's not that many,
no,
right?
not for
But
us.
if we've on average done 3 every year for the last 10 years, that's 30 people in 10 years. We only have 46, remember, and I was the 33rd.
Right.
So it's a constant grind. And the numbers aren't getting any better. The skills department for Rasmussen, I think, filled this last time, which, knock on wood, we had a little transition where hopefully people are getting back into it. I think the military is kind of picked up a little bit too, so in 5 years, it might not be an issue, but boy, if we don't arrange our cards, the deck right for the next 5 years, we could be in serious problem. And there's cities not far away from us, just north, that are short over 10 people. And they can't get more. They hire as many as they get, and they still can't fill the ranks. We're very fortunate. But I wanna keep that fortune. That'd be my only ask of the commission, is come up with new and exciting ways of keeping the people that we currently have. Without giving people money to start here. Just
Right.
try to-
Is there a portion of the budget set aside specifically for that piece?
Yes and no. I mean, we already do a good job with equipment. We're looking for other ways of doing that. So we don't have a line item for retention per se, but we're definitely something we need to consider. The recruitment end, I think we do a pretty good job. You know, this last hiring is half lateral and half CSO reserve. Over the last 30 years, that's basically half have come from one and half have come from the other. We very rarely have somebody with zero law enforcement that comes here. It just doesn't happen. That goes back to my time.
Wow.
Those are the two categories. Either we steal from someone else or we get them from the reserves or CSOs from within. It's kind of the two tracks. But if you want diversity and other candidates, you need to look even further. So
Right.
how do you recruit the young ones? How do you get into that area where we have cadets or whatever it might be from our community? But
One of the things we've done in the military to try to, I'm sure the Army does this too, but asking the people why, first of all, why they came, and then also why they're staying, because we can use that to our advantage, like to appeal to new people and also to keep the people we have and quite possibly lure some people from other departments. I don't know what that looks like for us, but it seems to be a pretty valuable tool to the military anyway.
I think when you see the 5-year plan, Captain Peterson's done a really nice job of laying out those specific things. What is your purpose for being here, and how do you keep it? How do you keep people to want to be a part of your community?
Yeah.
The big thing is, you know, we say local talent's best talent. There's a lot of people, I think right now there's over half that currently live in the city, and at least that are originally from Cottage Grove, graduated from Parkway, or have ties to the community, so.
I think, just as I might mention that a big part of it that, you know, that I hear too is just some of the community involvement, you know, the respect, you know, and some of those kind of things. And I think that's what would draw, you know, officers and things like that into our community, where, you know, some places where the attitudes are, you know, really stink, right? And I'm not a big social media person, but you know, more of the message getting out and you know, either coming around, you know, squelching some of the negative comments out there and continuing to promote some of the great things that our city and public safety and so forth do definitely helps too. So any type of things there in that area too, so.
DOJ just put out a white paper on recruitment retention, and we get, I don't know, what do you think, Captain Peterson? 90%? 90% of everything that they say you should do for recruitment retention, we're already there. And then there's a few of the other things, the anomalies that we have to look at and go, maybe that would work, maybe it wouldn't. You know, money's not always the shiny object that people are looking for, but you have to be competitive, right? You can't pay $10,000 less than the neighboring agency and expect the people not to leave nowadays, especially when there are many agencies right now, it's $10,000 to start on with them, and they're paying lateral pay, and they have all the other stuff, so new generation is not afraid to hop around. Where in the past, that's not how it happened. So I don't want to be just like every other agency and just expect people to come and go. I just want to be the landing place that everyone stays, so.
Thank you. Well, with that, are there any further comments, questions, concerns?
I'll move, we close the meeting.
All right. Do I have a motion to close the meeting? And a second?
Second.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.